Hi, I'm Evan Miller. It's 5 o'clock p.m. I just woke up because I was fishing all morning. Welcome back to another episode of Retired at 20, episode 5 today. It's so good to be back. It was a long, busy week, so I'm excited to film this episode. Now let's talk about how I got lake trout. If you follow me on social media, you might have noticed that I was out lake trout fishing this morning, very early. That's why I just woke up. How did this happen? Well, I was fishing at Fishtown, which you guys have been there in episode 2, and if you haven't, go check it out. So fishing in Fishtown, it's great, right? And I was just hanging with some people down there, talking to different fishermen and different anglers, and 4 guys come up, 4 random dudes, and we start bullshitting around, and I ended up going on their charter boat tour with them this morning. Camped out on the beach. It was great. Crazy stuff. Sometimes life throws cool curveballs at you. I don't have too much video. I actually don't have any video of me fishing, so you're not going to see any fish video action. But I do have some beautiful photos I'll share. And let's get to cooking these fillets. This is going to be probably the best meal of this series, for sure. Alright, this might seem like regular routine for most of you guys, most of you outdoors fishermen, anglers. However, you know the drill. So a little bit of baking soda, just a little bit, and then we'll put some kosher salt in there, and we're gonna put the fillets in there and let them sit for a couple hours while I run to the grocery store and get the stuff to do a fish pan fry. Alright, we're gonna jump right into it today. We are doing a pan fry. We got our trout right here, a whiny dog over there, and here's our batter. Our batter consists of shut up! I know you're hungry. Our batter consists of half cup of grated Parmesan cheese, half cup of bacon flavored crackers, which I did not use. I used some kind of Italian one. We have 1/2 cup of cornmeal, some garlic salt, pinch pepper, and we are going to be getting the fish all slimed up with some egg and milk. When it comes to preparing a fish like this, I always want to make sure that I get as much meat possible off the fillet. So I was not really going about size or function or how it looks. I was just trying to make sure I got all the meat possible off the fillet. So I just skinned them with a little fillet knife, and we got other stuff cooking up. So I'm going to hold off a few more minutes, then we're going to start battering up. So here's the entire workstation that I put together for cooking this efficiently. It took me about 30 minutes to prep everything. It really was not that difficult. I found the recipe online, so I was just following that. Like I said, the fish shapes of how it's going to come out, I really don't care what it looks like. I know it's going to taste good either way. And you can hear we got dogs playing in the back. So here's my workstation. We're going to, once the pan is all heated, we're going to take the fish, dip it in the eggs and milk. We're going to bread it in this wonderful looking breading. And I mean, that's one of the better looking ones I've done. And then we're going to pan fry until it's gold brown color. Real simple, but it's the freshest dinner I can imagine. I'm really grateful I got to go on that trip today. I'm so excited for this dinner tonight. In about 5 minutes I'm going to start cooking. And I'm not going to film the whole thing because it's going to be a little bit of a timely process, but you can watch me do a couple of them, and then we'll do the review and see how it comes out. Alright, we're rolling up in this joint. It's time to make some dinner. Here we go. We're going to take this and we're going to batter it. I don't know, maybe I'll use my hands. This is going to be our test one. We'll see how this comes out. Alright, the moment of truth. Yeah, so far that looks really, really good. Like I said, this one's a test one, so I don't exactly know how long, but we'll see. I know Pa's really excited. Thoughts? Alright, there's your close-up shot for you. That looks really good. I'm so impressed with myself, I'm not gonna lie. Pa's gonna enjoy himself for sure. Alright friends, welcome back to Retired at 20, episode 5. This is something I've been promising for a long time. Here with me today is a very special guest, longtime friend since I was a baby, family friend, author, radio host, fellow musician, Michigan legend Ben Hamper. Welcome to Retired at 20.
It's good to be here, Evan.
So Ben, you were born in Flint?
Yep.
And you worked on the assembly line. That's kind of your claim to fame, correct?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
And besides that, you're also a musician. We both have a love for music. And
not really a musician anymore, but I do 2 radio shows.
Great. So let's just jump right in. What made you decide, in a world full of people who think they can write quality content, why did you write Rivethead?
Why did I write it? My family all worked at GM for years and years, and I sort of resisted going in there, but I eventually got in, and once I got in there, I needed something to pass the time, and I always had a hankering for writing, so little by little I started, writing columns and articles that first got printed in the Flint Voice, a newspaper in Flint, Michigan, run by Michael Moore at the time, and hooked up with him, and that sort of got my start, and I did a weekly column, then it went to the Michigan Voice. When that left, I moved to the Detroit Free Press and did articles for them, and then eventually was contacted by a agent in New York that suggested, I string these columns together and flesh it out and put a book together, which I did in the early 90s. But the inspiration, I guess, was just to have something to do to document everything I saw in the shop, and sort of get an insider's view of what it was really like, because I wasn't really aware of any authentic factory books at the time, so
and
that was the
this is the factory book. I mean, we're talking the still required reading for some universities, even over 20 years later. It's changed a lot of people's lives. I remember we had a neighbor downstate who actually, when we mentioned that we knew you, he wanted his book autographed because he had to read it in college, and it changed his perception of automotive industry working. So what was like your initial reaction, being a working man to a successful author? Was it a fast transition, or was it kind of like you just said, it was one thing after another led to the final product?
It was a pretty slow transformation. I mean, I didn't write at all maybe the first, 3 or 4 years I worked there, but then when I started, it gained steam in a hurry. The articles started being reprinted different places, and just larger print venues and stuff. So when it got rolling about mid 80s, it really gains steam in a hurry, and then eventually I left the shop and put the book out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you were on Today's Show, correct? David Letterman.
Yep.
This is a big deal. People watching this, are looking forward. Every episode I've been saying we're going to get Ben Hamper on here, and people were excited for this. This is a big thing. So I kind of came up with a good question here. I'm a big Bob Seger fan. Obviously, I'm a full-time musician, as you guys are quite aware by now. And I look up to Seger as kind of, when you listen to Live Bullet, you think it's such a long concert, and he was kind of known as the working man's musician. Would you consider yourself the working man's author? A Michigan-born man who comes from a family with a history of automotive, working, and you kind of drifted off with writing. Are you the working man's author?
I'd say by default, yeah. I mean,
yeah, I think so as well.
I never went to college, but I always say I didn't go to college, but like you mentioned, my book did. So
That's
I was-
not a bad alternative.
I was proud of that. And I was a big Bob Seger fan, but mainly of his earlier stuff, you know.
The Bob Seger system.
60s, Bob Seger system, Bob Seger Last Heard.
So we
And
watch
some of his early solo albums.
all the time at work. Me and my coworkers are watching Lucifer and Ramblin' Gamblin' Man. Back when Bob used to play guitar, we always talk about how Came Live Bullet, that was kind of his big breakthrough. You know, he earned the state of Michigan with that. You know, but
Nationwide, yeah.
he was kind of. You could tell that he wasn't used to not having a guitar in his hands. The way he moves his arms, he kind of wants to be strumming along. So.
Oh, he was a fantastic guitar player and an amazing.
Yeah, a lot of
songwriter.
people don't realize that Bob could actually shred the guitar.
Yeah.
So, besides writing, it was a good transition. You're also a radio host. How'd you get into radio?
I started radio, I guess about 1981.
So before you started writing, or around the same time?
Right around the same time. In fact, Michael Moore, once again, helped me get my start in that. He knew some folks down at the public radio station in Flint, at the time, WFBE, and he pitched them my idea. He knew I was into all kinds of obscure alternative music, and we pitched them the idea of a sort of a punk-based radio show. And we got that. It was called Take No Prisoners, and it ran for like 15 years there. I was on the air about 10 years, and then left about the time the book came out. But it later went on to become a sort of popular Flint cable TV show too. We'd film bands and host them, and they have all kinds of goofy skits and stuff on there.
All right,
But,
so here's
it was 81 I started.
okay. So here's the next. Talking about cable TV, that brings me to the next question: is Rivethead ever going to be in the theaters? Is it ever going to be a movie, or am I going to be able to watch it on Netflix someday?
That's a good question. We've come close a number of times that it looked like it was going to happen. We sold the rights multiple times, only to have something fall through. Richard Linklater owned it for a while. Initially, it was bought by Warner Brothers, and it looked like it was going to happen then. That fell through when the producer died suddenly, and then it was picked up, I don't know, about 6 years ago. The option was sold to Starz for a possible series on Starz. That never materialized. Right now we're in negotiations with a guy from Detroit who's now based in LA, and we're in the process of trying to work out a deal on the rights for that, so we'll see where that goes. But
I can
it's
only
like hurry up and wait.
I could only imagine that, like, you know, there a lot of popular things right now, especially during this lockdown that we've been in, are documentary series and you know, real stories. People love that stuff. I could totally see that being on Netflix someday, and you know, I'm sure people would love to see that.
I think it really lends itself to being like a Netflix series, because you have a large cast of characters. Of course, you know, there's so many different kind of people that work in a plant, and you know, different settings, the bars we would inhabit, you know, and obviously our own separate home lives and stuff. I just think it really would go well, but at this point, the guy that's trying to buy the rights wants to make it a feature film, so I'm not picky. If it gets made before I die, I'll be happy.
So about the characters, are those real names, or did you hide identities?
In the book?
Yeah.
A couple of my close friends in there, like Dave Steele, Janice, I left the real names in with their permission, but most of my overlords there are ficticious names.
'Cause when my grandpa and I always talk about the book, we talk about, you know, the characters are great. You know, he says it's a wonderful tale. I personally have not read it. It's gonna happen. Now it's gonna happen for sure.
We should pause the film and give you 3 hours.
I can't read that fast. I gotta read for class. So, okay, I want to know, you know, listening to your radio show literally since I was a toddler, getting shout outs, my first shout outs on the radio, my first airplay from my own music because of you on the radio. You know, we love your show, obviously. Every Friday night we listen. So where did your love for this garage rock and this exotic music come from?
I think babysitters, to begin with. When I was really young, I had a lot of babysitters. My parents worked, and they were invariably teenage girls. And they would bring their little record players over with their 45s, and I was just transfixed with the notion that, you didn't have to listen to the radio, so if you wanted to play All Day and All the Night by the Kinks, you could just pick up the needle and start it over. Mm-hmm. So that got me sort of going on it. But we also had a great radio station or two in Flint at the time. WTAC was, for an AM radio station, was pretty all-inclusive. They played a lot of local acts and stuff that didn't get a lot of airplay, and I was always just sort of attracted to the obscure side of rock and roll.
Right.
And so when I got older, that's sort of what I chose to highlight is bands that were non-commercial and didn't get a lot of airplay, and sort of
and I'm
focus
sure
on
those bands appreciate that. People like you, my band, my old band OIM up here was nothing, but we still got radio play, and that was every musician. Every musician's goal is to get heard on radio, and now Siren gets spun on numerous local radio stations, but our biggest drawback is the one song that everyone wants to play on radio, Harley, is almost a 6-minute track. And when you're a new band, 6-minute track's a long time on radio.
Sure
Only a few songs. Hotel California, Do You Feel Like I Do?
Hey Jude.
Yes, those are the kind of mega hits that get jammed for 6 minutes, but it's definitely something we're going to work on the second album.
Well, that should be the purpose of alternative radio, is to not worry about song length or
right, yeah.
or what the band looks like. Or
seems like things were much different when you were in Flint in the 80s doing radio than how things are now. Now I got a phone, and when I want to listen to my favorite bands, it's there. But people don't realize the importance of radio and the whole phonograph effect in the early 1900s, how making music portable and bringing it into the home was huge in American history.
Well, just the transistor radio, which is from my generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to think that you could take something and listen to your, favorite radio station at the beach or, in your bed, which I did. I put it under the pillow, and yeah, it's obviously been an ever-escalating production as far as making it easier to access music. Now, of course, you got so many options. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, closing remarks?
I don't know. When are you going to get your band back together?
Well, I've been talking about it in this series a lot. Hopefully, unfortunately, I don't see us playing in 2020. Every show we had booked was canceled. We almost got to play St. Paddy's Day, but it got canceled. And this is a fantastic opportunity once the studio opens back up. This is a fantastic chance to get in and record that second album. We've been talking about it, but we have a lot of content in the back of our heads, and some of it's been put on just our phones and stuff at rehearsal. But hopefully
now in this
year,
day and age of the technology, couldn't you guys record from your separate domains and meld it together?
We've thought about it, but we were just talking about the old school style and old school ways. We still, when Siren records, we use tube powered microphones we use what is it called? I can't even think of it. It's Neumann microphone from the 1940s. Same style microphone that Sinatra would have sang out of. Nice. With tube powered microphone, I put a Shure 57 right up to my tube powered Blues Deluxe, and I plugged my guitar into it. I got a few effect pedals in the way, but we recorded one track. We had a Hammond B3 with a Leslie. It's all old stuff. We want the old sound, so we use the old gear. Everything's done old school on our albums.
Well, we'll be looking forward to Siren's version of "Fly Me to the Moon" by Sinatra.
Maybe we'll revamp the old music.
Yeah.
Ben, thanks for having.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me for the last part, but it's awesome having you on here. I've been
great to be here.
Been spending a lot of time up north, as you guys know, and being retired at 20, it's great. So super cool. Ben Hamper, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the lake trout, and I hope you enjoyed the wonderful interview that Ben gave me, and then he flipped the interview on me and interviewed me a little bit. Always a blast as usual. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Link down below will be an Amazon link to the book Tales from the Assembly Line, which I do plan to finally read after 20 years. So I encourage you to buy it. It's a really, really good book. So yeah, see you guys in episode 6. We got a lot of cool stuff planned. I just found out I don't have to go back to work till after 4th of July. Being retired is freaking awesome.